All right, I want to start pivoting a little bit about some of the challenges in your career when it comes to working in the film production, game production business. And there might be some differences between the two in terms of how the work gets done. So was there such a thing as work-life balance in the companies that you work for? It's a very kind of touchy subject, depending on how long you've been working, that's going to mean something different to you depending on where you are in your career. All right.
For some people there was. for like, I definitely got sucked into I'm not sure if I want to call it work ethic, but it's definitely like how I've been raised to, just kind of like you get stuff done, or it's, it can almost be a bit of guilt if you're sitting there at the end of the day and you said, oh, I'm going to have this done by the end of the day, and you don't, and you think like, oh, I can sit like another hour or two, it's fine, you're trying to prove yourself, and it's like, don't do that. Even though you think you might be doing yourself a favor there and then, in the long term, you're doing yourself and others a disservice. I think like work-life balance, what that really comes down to is understanding how a project gets done. And there's definitely like, I don't think I've ever been like forced to work. But there's definitely been times where I've been like, oh, I'm gonna do this. Like I'll come in on weekends just because I'm like, I need to do this. So there's definitely like things about that as well. But the really important thing to think about these is that if let's say that your lead gives you like 3 days to do a rig, and you do it in those 3 days, but for each of those 3 days, you sat like 4 hours extra. If you have like an 8-hour workday, you sat like 4 hours extra each day, and like really like polishing it, or like really like, oh, I can't figure this out. Now, that rig wasn't done in 3 days. It was done in 4.5 days, right? It's all of those kind of like ghost hours. That's the stuff that if you don't tell people, and if people don't know, then that's it's not necessarily like a bad thing on you. This is what I really want to stress, is that do be honest with your leads, and like if you have issues, tell them. If you're not going to be done in time, tell them. Because if not, that's when you're starting to get into this like bad cycle of like, oh, I need to work late to get this done, because of they don't know that you spent 3 days on it. So next time, if they give you like the same task and they expect you to do it in like 2.5 or 2 days, because it's like, hey, you did it like last time, it doesn't like correlate the experience to like the time that you actually spent on it, if that makes sense with it.
Well, it sounds like you're managing a set of expectations that are false, and I think that doesn't give them a clear snapshot. And sometimes it's hard because, like you said, we talked a little bit about being sort of thrown into the fire. It's a learning business. Maybe the rig you're working on didn't provide something that was similar to what you've done in the past. It's new territory, and you literally have to build the bridge while you're walking on it. So, and
it's been a lot of times there's been, it's like me or other like leads that I've had where it's been like, oh, I would expect like almost like, oh, I was expecting you to be done with this now. And then at the end of it, they're like, yeah, I've been struggling with this one thing. And I was like, well, why are you doing that? And it's like, oh, well, because it says here in this brief, and potentially I'd missed that in the brief. I'm like, oh yeah, this is like a 3-month task instead of like a 3-day task. Now that's there, right? It's like that hasn't happened, just to be clear. But it's like, again, it's communication is really important. Catching up, especially from like leads as well. Catching up and knowing what your team is doing, even if it's just like a quick little like, hey, what are you guys doing today? Okay, cool. You're still on track with that. Sweet.